because they just disconnected from them, because I like to let the teachers, or whoever's handling the students at the schools I'm at, I let them know when kids don't turn their work in. So, I had 3 kids. I had 4 kids from one of the schools that were just on the TV, hadn't turned theirs in. That's why they like me, because I do that instead of just letting them think. Most dual credit instructors who are SPC and full-time don't do that, so. Okay. See, I have my big cup. What you drinking over there?
It's like just like a strawberry lemonade, but like more ice.
Has it got extra stuff, like nutrients and all that, or?
Just extra strawberries.
Extra strawberry? Well, that's pretty nutritious. Yes, I'm driving to Last Buddy this Friday morning. I will be leaving my house about 6:30 to get there. Should be interesting. For one student, but she says, what is it, the needs of the many? No, don't outweigh the needs of the few. Do y'all even know what that's from? See, you need to know Star Trek. Okay. I'm so disappointed now. Have a good weekend? You don't look real confident.
It was good.
It was. It was 3 days. I slept late yesterday. I ran last night. That was good. Actually, it's pretty sweaty. Okay. I got to keep that up in case my schools don't show up. I have somebody registered in this class, and we don't know where they are. They're not at either school, and they're not in here. But it's a dual credit student, so. They've never logged into the class. That's the first clue that somebody's really not taking it seriously, right? On Monday, Wednesday, I have a student in each of my 2 sections who's never shown up. They're about to get dropped because they've never attended, so. You wonder why they haven't attended? Because money has had to have been paid because you're dropped if you don't pay, so. Now they're gonna get dropped for another reason. Oh, good, there's Post, there's New Deal. Good morning. Give me just a second, I need to. While they're handing out stuff, we're missing Isaiah. There we go. Amen. Cool. All right. Now one of each, Isaiah. Okay. I've been hearing from Isaiah, or whoever that is, somebody, they were going to drop you out of the class, and then you stayed in the class. You were going to drop out because you were supposedly going to Leveland or something. I don't know. It was very strange. But you never dropped it, so maybe it was cool. All right, so we're going to talk about narratives. And that's what I was going to be very clear. I was going to see here, did everybody get the quizzes taken over chapters 1 and 2? I hope. Let me take a quick peek. And then we're going to just switch and talk about narratives, okay? Yeah, that one person hasn't taken them. And Gabe, we're going to get that taken care of and let you take it tomorrow. Let me make a note. So when you see that those quizzes have opened up again, it's not for you to take, it's for somebody to make it up, all right? Because that's the only way I can do it. Because I had somebody, can you email me? No, I can't email you those quizzes. They are not paper quizzes. They are actually only in Blackboard, so. Okay. And it's interesting, I had somebody say, I was doing the introductory discussion boards, I was grading those very quickly to get them out of the way. And somebody said, I don't know why you're going to take your sister. I don't like mine. I was like, oh, I touch your sister. That's interesting. So believe it or not, I do read those, though I don't respond. Unless somebody just writes something that's particularly entertaining, so. All right, looks like all right, you guys wanted the better classes and everybody getting their stuff taken and turned in, okay? So let's go talk about, we're gonna look at the one that's the PowerPoint. It looks like an outline. All right, yeah, that's it right there. The second one he's got up. It's got the big indentions on it. That's the outline. Let me pull up that PowerPoint. This is interesting. Let's get back up there. So, what we're going to be writing now is narrative. Hopefully, you read the chapters about narrative, so you realize what a narrative is, okay? And do you guys recognize the actor in this picture? Can you tell who that is? Say that louder. Morgan Freeman. He is the, sorry, I try to put mine on silent, but I have to keep it out because I have to text about connections all the time. He is probably who I wouldn't mind have narrating my life if I were to have, somebody to do that. But he played God in one of the earlier movies about, it's kind of cool. He's got one of those voices that just sounds like your life would be better if he narrated it. It would sound more interesting, be more peaceful or something. So, Morgan Freeman. So the purpose of a narrative essay is to tell a story. But it's not the only part. There are other things you can do at the same time. So this is very tiny. I know you can't read it, and it glows because of that green background. But narrative essays are organized traditionally in chronological order, where you start at the beginning and you tell all the events that happen. Now, I'm just going to tell you, when you write a narrative, here's my first bit of advice. Don't begin to do stuff. If your story begins, well, I got up that morning and I began to get dressed. Well, if you begin to get dressed, logically you have to say, after I finally got dressed, you have to finish getting dressed, okay? So instead of beginning to do something, just say, I got dressed, ate my breakfast, and got in my car to go to school. See how that's much more active than saying, I began to get dressed, and then I ate breakfast, and it's more immediate, because we don't want to spend all our time on ordinary everyday actions, okay? So don't begin to do stuff. Like any other essay, it should begin with an introductory paragraph, which will set up the event being related. So you've got to give me some clue about what you're doing, all right? It says here the paragraph will be followed by a minimum of 3 body paragraphs. I'm just going to say you can actually write this as 3 paragraphs total, okay? You don't have to have a 5-paragraph essay on this one. An introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. You can have an introduction that sets up the story you're going to tell me. Then you have the body, which is basically the story. And then your conclusion, which is where you can say maybe the lesson that you learned about life, what you got out of whatever you're narrating, okay? Always end it with a memorable and strong concluding paragraph. And how much better is it to say what you got out of what lesson? I call it the, I didn't mean to call her. Oops. On Facebook, no less. How did I do that? Sometimes me and my phone don't get along real well. So you want to have a good, strong concluding paragraph, which to have a paragraph, you have to have more than one sentence. The whole notion is a paragraph, or otherwise it would say concluding sentence, wouldn't it? But it says paragraph. So you need a couple, maybe 3. And always remember to stick to one point throughout the essay. Don't get sidetracked. Okay? And each paragraph should flow smoothly from one to the other, if you have more than one body paragraph. So you need transitions. And particularly with the narrative, you have those cues that tell the reader that, and they say first, next, then, finally. Please avoid going first. The first thing we did on our trip was this. The second thing we did on our trip was this. The third thing. But avoid those simplistic kind of organization. You can say the first thing we did, that's fine, but don't keep going giving me the other way to say numbers, all right? Because you're telling it chronologically, most likely. You don't have to go. The fourth thing we did on our trip, we can write, that's what we might do when we're in elementary or middle school, because we're still learning how to organize. But there are ways to say, after a few days we did this. That's much better than saying the second day or the third day. There are ways to make it not quite so obvious. Let's see. The viewpoint, because narrative essays are sometimes personal in nature, and I expect yours to be personal, this is the only essay, and I see how I'm reiterating the word essay, meaning introduction, body, and conclusion at least. This is the only essay that you can use first person in, which is I, me, my. Now, that doesn't mean I want to see every sentence begin with I. I did this, and then I did that, and then I did this. That's boring, right? You can write about yourself in third person. Did you know that? Isaac did this. Alex did this. Cal did this. You know what I'm saying? You can write about yourself in the third person. I'm not going to sit there and go, why'd you write about yourself in the third person? Because that way you are using nouns. Nouns are more interesting than pronouns. Because if you use I all the time, you've never given me the noun. You got to have it. And be careful. All other essays you're going to write for me are going to be in third person, which is as if you back out of the essay to make it, it's no longer personal, it's now becoming more academic in nature. You can write a whole lot of stuff and you never use a personal pronoun. You can have a lot of fun with this. You can write about something that was amusing or kind of crazy or whatever, so enjoy yourself on it. But the one thing I don't want you to do is I don't want you to, in the middle of it, and I've seen this, I haven't graded any of your paragraphs, I've graded out of 2 other classes. Don't use you, because you is the reader. You is instructions. First you do this, if you're going to make a paper airplane, the first step in paper airplane is this. Then you do this, then you do that. Don't use you. The reader's not part of your narrative. They weren't present. You with me? If you're not present, how can I be part of the story? When you say, and I've had somebody said, I picked on a guy in my last class because his last sentence says, if you ever get into jazz, you'll know it's really interesting. Well, that's not, the point was not to make me part of this paragraph. The point was to say, jazz is a very interesting form of music to listen to. That's the point of the paragraph, not try to bring, it's not a conversation. And a lot of times when we use you, it's like it makes it less formal. And we're trying to learn to be more formal in our writing because this is really not necessarily about writing personal stuff, it's about learning to write academic documents. Because when you go into history, they're going to want you to say, you should know that this happened in World War II, in World War II, blah, 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 blah. You see we've got to learn to be more academic. So know you, don't address the reader, and there's a real easy way. Do you guys know how to use find in Word? When you're on the home page in Word, there's a little button over on the right-hand side on the top menu, and it's fine. Click on that, type in the word you, and it'll show you every single time you shows up in there. So it's a great way to help you find errors in your writing to use that. All right, so after viewpoint, that's it. So now we're going to talk about, discard. Let's go look at the one that says 5 steps for successful narrative writing. That's wrong. That's the wrong one. Okay. See, I've already taught this, so I'm down at the bottom of all the documents. I got this out of a website that was pretty good. And it's 5 tips for writing a good narrative essay. And they're going to kind of reiterate what I've said. I'm going to do something here very quickly. By the way, here when you click on the home button, right over here after all the different types of styles you can do, right up the top is a little magnifying glass with the word find. That's where you type in, click that open and type in you. I'm actually going to blow up the font because I can only do so much by blowing up the screen. So writing a narrative essay is an essential talent, particularly if you're doing research and field research. So I don't know what you may be doing later on in your life, but if you're going to go into a medical field and you're going to be researching, drugs and things like that, you might have to write about some kind of study that was done. So sometimes you will be writing narratives when you're writing academic writing. But it doesn't mean you're going to write personal narratives. Rather than summing up things, it's much more interesting for them to read your experience and then draw their own conclusions. The narrative essay makes its point, that should be possessive, sorry, by subtly guiding the reader rather than battering them the way a rhetorical essay would. The first reason you do this, it's subtle, and it's more entertaining to read. By observing these basic ideas, you can improve a narrative essay. So the first one is clarity. Complex words and syntax are a hindrance to clarity, and should be avoided. Ideas should be clearly distributed between sentences and paragraphs. So, don't write for the teacher. Don't write the words you think I want you to say. Because, is anybody in here over 20? Okay, so you're all under 20. Maybe under 19? 19 and under? So you're all pretty young. So your vocabulary is not my vocabulary. And you're going to find that out. Let's look at the examples. The first one says, although I have never been to the races before, I was very excited to behold them, yet also somewhat nervous because of the type of people who go there. Okay, first off, how many of you have ever used the word behold? I've sung it in a song. But if you don't use the word behold when you normally speak, don't use it when you write for me. So think about word choice. So don't just randomly go in and, let's see. Let's go here. Let me highlight behold. Let's see, references. I can't ever remember where that's at. I was going to look for the thesaurus, okay? Header, footer, Wikipedia, online video. Where's references, mailings, review? I don't know. Don't go into the thesaurus and try to put in different words. That's what you have to be careful of. So if you wouldn't use it in normal speech or writing, don't use it. Don't try to impress me with your vocabulary. I used to, when I was teaching in high school, I had this SAT prep vocabulary, and there would be all these large, difficult words to help people out on the English portion of the SAT test, where you had to do the analogies, and if you don't know what the words mean, you can't do the analogies. So I would have kids who would start using those words and like, that's not flying. Don't do that. So here's how they clear it up. I'd never been to a horse race. I was excited to go, but also a little nervous since I wasn't sure about the people at the track. That makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? It's much more interesting because it's more specific. It's not using vague terms. That's one of the things I've noticed about the paragraphs I've graded is sometimes people are a little vague when they're describing something, Well, my family is a good group of people, and, they're just vagueness. Nothing specific for you to attach ideas to. So number 2 says, don't describe each and every one of your own movements. Like beginning, I begin to get dressed. Don't do that. As we boarded, there's just those little things to watch out for. As I went in the door, I turned and saw a TV. I looked around and saw posters on the wall, and as I went further in, I noticed everyone was watching MASH. That's every single detail. Don't do that, and I'm going to explain. Somebody will want to write about, one of the things you can write about is a trip you've taken somewhere. So you go to the Bahamas, and you're writing this, and it's only 600 words or 500 words or so. That's not very long. But you're sitting there, and so you have your introduction. My family and I went on a fantastic trip to the Bahamas, and then paragraph 1. Well, we got in our car and started driving to Dallas to go catch the plane to go to the Bahamas. And then you spend a paragraph talking about your trip in the car to Dallas to catch the plane. Is that interesting? Maybe not, okay? And then the next paragraph's about your plane flight. Well, we got in the plane flight, and it was really crowded, and it was kind of bumpy, and then we landed. I would much rather read about the Bahamas than about a plane flight. Do you see what I'm saying? So don't give me every single detail. I don't need to know that you walked in the room. You look to the right, then you look to the left, then you looked at, I reminded myself of my husband. He will do that to me sometimes. So, and do you guys even know what MASH is? TV show about the war in Korea? Okay. Improved. I immediately noticed the posters on the wall, though everyone else's eyes were focused on a TV playing MASH. Okay? It says the same thing, but there's specific things. You don't have to go, I looked here, then I looked here, then I looked here. You don't have to do that. Okay. Avoid the second person narrative. Yeah, there we go. Second person, write the word you really big. Let's see if it's not letting me draw. You see, it's not giving me color, so I've done something to that portion, so I can't use my pen and draw, okay? But write in the word you here so that you'll know, don't use you. The only time you is acceptable in your narrative is if you're doing dialogue. And do you really want to spend out of 500 to 600 words all this time writing dialogue? That's a choice you have to make, okay? An example, as you go in the door, you will turn and see a TV. You look around and see, there's that you. All right. It's okay to write in present tense. You don't have to write this in the past. It might be easier to write something in present tense, particularly if you're making it up. I always have one student that wants to write a fictional narrative, and they set it in some kingdom long ago or somewhere in the future far, far away, and they want to write their sci-fi, their fantasy, okay? And that's okay. Be careful. Be concise, because I don't want to read 5 pages of your version of Game of Thrones, okay? Or The Lord of the Rings, or Star Wars. So don't use you, right? Okay. To interest the reader, dynamic word choice is key. Don't sound clinical. Dynamic means active verbs. Okay? Use the same slang, idiom, and turns of phrase you would use in speech, but avoid passive constructions. There were many people on the flight. Many people were on the flight, but see how much better that is? Passive, there were. And I don't mind slang and idiom. Avoid cussing unless it's vital to your story, okay? All right. Example, I'm presented an array of unpleasant photos in which many casualties are shown after automobile accidents, okay? That's a bit pretentious. Improve. They showed me a book stuffed with gruesome pictures of people who'd been in car wrecks. See how much more clear? I mean, it's so obvious what you're talking about. Limit your references. Now, one of the ways in which we're going to talk about introductions and conclusions in a minute, but one of the things you can do is use a quote. And we're actually going to go over the quotes out of the textbook that might be a good starting point for you to begin with. But I don't really want to works consulted, but if you quote from a source, you need to tell me who said it. And don't be surprised if I go check to make sure that's who said it. Because, you know, you can make up a quote and stick a name on it. I don't know, I used to coach Congress, and in Congress it happened so quickly. Congress is a new competition where people are proposing legislation and all that, but if you get a person up there who's proposing something, they can make up facts and stories and use fake names, and it's almost too hard to do that, so don't do that. But I'm sitting there going, particularly when I listen to this kid quote his father. His father's just, you know, it's not anybody who should be, you know, so you have to be careful about that. So don't make up quotes. Though they used to teach that on the TOS test, I think, and maybe on the tax. So explain yourself as you go along rather than trying to refer your reader back to a previous statement. Yeah, don't say, as stated earlier in the essay, don't do that. Don't ever do that. When I first saw the comic book fans jumping up and down, I thought as they would, Lord, what fools these mortals be. And it says Gaiman, 1989. I later learned why they do this. Gaiman is Neil Gaiman. He is an author of a book called Good Omens. He also writes, he's prolific, fantasy kind of author. But Good Omens is about an angel and a devil who've become since creation, they've become kind of like frenemies. You know, they're friendly enemies, and they decide to work together to stop the apocalypse. It's a little sacrilegious, but they actually, Netflix did a series over it, if you want to watch it. And then I was intrigued enough that I bought the book and read the book. All right? So improve. The fans jump up and down. When I first saw this, I wondered what they were doing, and my mind conjured a quote from Shakespeare that Neil Gaiman used in his Sandman. Lord, what fools these mortals be. However, I watched a bit longer and realized the company spokesbottles were throwing free merchandise. The fans wanted to get the most from their day at the convention. Okay? Much more specific and it makes more sense. And what I want to say is, yeah, have you ever been at some kind of sporting event and they're throwing T-shirts? Everybody wants them, right? That's what we all want, those free T-shirts, because free T-shirts are free T-shirts. So I'll just warn you, we're going to have one of the librarians is going to come in here in about a month, maybe a little more, and show how to use the databases for South Plains College, which those kids have access to, you guys have access to, and she will give you some free things with it. It's like highlighters and little notepads and things like that. Take whatever you can get free, because guess what? Your tuition money's help pay for it. Okay? All right. So the narrative essay is a keen rhetorical tool because it allows the readers to draw their own conclusions. But falling into the traps above deprive it of its effectiveness. By avoiding these errors, you can subtly guide your reader in your desired direction. Okay? We'll go out of that. Don't save. Here we go. We're going to talk about introductions and conclusions now. because I'm not gonna spend a lot of time focusing on that for the narrative. We'll talk more about it when we're writing the next paper, which is a compare and contrast. And my facilitator's gonna notice that I am the course has changed this semester from what it's been in the past, okay? So introductions, the opening paragraph of an essay should start with several sentences that attract the reader's attention. Why not? So, they should advance the central idea or the thesis of your essay, which you're gonna develop. Kind of like that, the topic sentence in a paragraph is not necessarily the thesis, but when you did that second sentence where you gave me the list of the things you were going to talk about, that becomes, if you combine those two, then you've got a thesis, okay? Frequently, a thesis gives a plan of development that consists of the major points and that will be examined, and they must be listed in the order in which they appear in the essay. So, you can do that with the narrative. When we get to, I have a long, long list of narrative topics, and we get to that. Some of those lend themselves more to doing a 5-paragraph essay versus writing an introduction, the body that tells the story, and then the conclusion. Here's one example. Winter is my favorite season because I like the weather, the holidays, and the sports. The body paragraphs will follow in the order of weather, holidays, and sports. Okay? In some cases, the development part of the thesis is omitted. So, education can be a key to socioeconomic security. So these are all things you can do in your introduction. This gives the central idea, but it doesn't tell you exactly what you're going to look at it when it comes to socioeconomic security and education. So you can begin with a broad general statement of your topic and narrow it down to your thesis. That's kind of like an inverted pyramid shape for the introduction. It's broad, and it gets more specific. You start off here, World War II had a profound impact on the next 60 years. Then you work your way down to the main thing, what the effects of World War II on the world economy, political situation, or geopolitical. You see how I've started very broad, now I'm going to get very specific. So start with an idea or situation that is the opposite of the one you will develop. This is different ways you can do it. Once you get to 6, down here, once you get here, these are different ways you can begin your introduction or focus on it, okay? So starting with an idea or situation, you might say, well, when most people think about a hero, their concept is somebody wearing a cape and a mask. My hero doesn't wear a cape and a mask. My hero is my dad who blah, 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 blah. You see how we started off with the opposite. That's the way to do it. Explain the importance of your topic to the reader. Why is it important about what happened to you? This was the day that I learned that my parents were going to get divorced and my life would change forever. That's the importance of a topic, isn't it? Okay. You can use an anecdote, a brief, or an incident or a brief story. But the problem with that is if you're writing a narrative, you're already going to be telling a story, right? So if you have one little story in your introduction and then another story in the rest of the body of the essay, it's a little conflicting, okay? Or you can use a quotation. And when we go look at the textbook in just a couple of minutes, you're going to see that these quotations are a way to give you an idea, maybe like the big moral lesson of your narrative, okay? And conclusions. The concluding paragraph often summarizes the essay by restating the thesis and maybe giving the main supporting points. Writers often present a concluding thought about the subject of the paper. I like to call that the lesson about life that you learned from your narrative. What did you learn from this event in your life, okay? And include a thought-provoking quotation. So you can use a quotation in the introduction. I don't know if I would use another quotation in the conclusion. You might restate that conclusion from the introduction and kind of show that this is really, truly a good lesson to learn, whatever that quote is. And you end with a prediction or recommendation. Probably not what's going to happen in your narratives. These are more like if you're dealing with a problem and trying to solve it in an argumentative essay. And this all basically comes from out of the Langham textbook, pages 7 through 10 and 94 through 100. But those actually might be slightly off because I created this document several years ago before they're on this new edition. Okay. So introductions and conclusions. So now we're going to have some fun. I have a huge long list of possible topics. Hold on, I'm stopping to read something. Well, I'll read it in a second. But I need to go to the textbook first. That's what I need to do. Okay. For me to allow students to make up the test, I have to reopen it. It's not available right now. So I will open up the test tomorrow during class time. So again, if you guys see an announcement about the test opening up, don't try to take it. You've already taken it, okay? So I'm gonna open it up between 9 and 10 tomorrow. So there's a couple of people that'll be taking it. All right, textbook. Yes, I'm still here. All right, let me go. The quotes that I'm referring to that you might could work on are on pages 239 and 240 in your e-textbook. The first one is this: if you never have a dream, you'll never have a dream come true. And it's just a popular saying. I'm not crazy about that one because I never really had ever heard that one, so. Yeah, but if you don't have a dream, you can't make it come true. That's kind of an obvious statement. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Before I got married, I had 6 theories about bringing up children. Now I have 6 children and no theories. I'm going to be honest. Do any of you have kids? Okay. It's hard to write that paper if you don't have children. And I don't know about my high school kids because some of them could have kids. That's quite possible. So I would avoid that one if you want to start with that one. Here we go. There are some things you learn best in calm and some in storm. That's a good one. You know, we learn, I don't know, most often I learn from when bad things happen. I learn more sometimes, it seems like, than I do when it's calm. Okay? Success is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. You've all heard that one. Yeah. That you got to sweat it out. That's like your coach is saying, you know, you got to give 100%. Right? Football team to win. I like this one. What a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. Okay, so I think about that, and it reminds me of something that kind of happens with high school kids, and my daughter did this. She said, Mom, I'm going to spend the night with so-and-so. And guess what she didn't do? She didn't spend the night with that person. And that person told their parents, I'm going to spend the night with another person. And that person told her parents that she was going to spend the night with Kim. And so, guess what? They all lied and they all did something else. Have you ever lied to your parents about spending the night with somebody? You're nodding your head. Okay. Alex, good to know. Could you write about that? She says probably not. You know, but have you ever told a lie and then it's just kind of gotten out of proportion sometimes? They make movies about that, don't they? I'm thinking My Little Pony has one. Hold on. Uh-oh. An important message I had to respond to. Okay. Okay. Anyway, when you deceive someone, sometimes you get caught, right? Okay. There's a sucker born every minute. One of our favorite things to do when I was growing up in high school was the upperclassmen would take the younger classmen and they would go snipe hunting. Ever been snipe hunting? There's no such thing as a snipe. It doesn't exist. It is. And you take the underclassmen out in the country somewhere and you leave them, and they have to figure out how to get back to town, and they're supposed to beat sticks together to drive the snipes towards you. Okay. All right. You guys have missed out on a few things. Not growing up in a small town. Anybody grow up in a small town in this group? From? Oh yeah. Yeah. I should remember that. I'm gonna make a note of that so I'll know, Julie. It's okay. I'm going out there in probably about a month, I think. Okay, let's see. We lie loudest when we lie to ourselves. Ever done that? That's almost the same thing when we practice to deceive, that lying. All marriages are happy. It's the living together afterward that causes all the trouble. Might not be something you're going to write about. Anybody married? Okay. Hoping and praying are easier, but do not produce as good results as hard work. That's an interesting one, isn't it? A little learning is a dangerous thing. Oh, yes. A little learning to drive is a dangerous thing, right? I was running one day last week, and there was a mother trying to teach her daughter to parallel park while I was running. And I got tickled because they had boxes out there. It was hilarious. You know how many times I've parallel parked in my life since I got my driver's license? A long time ago. A long, long time ago. Maybe 4. And I always try to parallel park when I go find the spot that's obviously got no cars around it, so I don't hit anybody. I don't have one of those cars that will park it itself. Okay. Nothing is as good as it seems beforehand. Ever go to Six Flags and you're all excited about getting in there to go, and they finally open up, you get in and the lines are long and it's hot, the bathrooms are gross. It's never as great as you thought. That also could be rephrased as, the grass is always greener on the other side. Nothing is as good as it seems beforehand, you know? Okay, a lot of cliches. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. Interesting. Well, I've noticed that as people get older, it's not happening to me yet, but I can feel it approaching. They don't like to drive after dark because it's hard to see well. Your reaction time's slow. If you've got an older relative that doesn't like to go out at night because they don't see well. You know, I don't see well now. So be careful when you see me driving away. When I got to the end of my long journey in life, I realized I was the architect of my own destiny. Probably not a topic for you guys. You don't have that long lives yet. Okay. A fool and his money are soon parted. Oh, yeah. You just had to have that latest crate. You just had to have whatever it was, and then you got it, and it broke after about 3 days, right? Whatever it was. From what we get, we can make a living. What we give, however, makes a life. That's pretty cool. That's a good one. Arthur Ashe, African American, one of the first African American well-known professional tennis players. I believe he caught AIDS from a transfusion, and that killed him. But there is the Arthur Ashe Foundation. It has something to do with that. No matter how lovesick a woman is, she shouldn't take the first pill that comes along. Come on, ladies, you've heard you got to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince. Same thing, isn't it? So you could write about a frog you kissed, couldn't you? Fear not those who argue, but those who dodge. Anybody like Hamilton, the play? If you've listened to it, Aaron Burr sings a song about, what is it? Talk less, smile more. Never let them know what you are standing for. That's kind of the same thing. Don't ever let them know what you really care about, okay? Trust in Allah, but tie your camel. If you don't tie a camel, what's going to happen to it? It'll probably wander off. Don't expect God to watch your camel for you. That's all it is. So those are possibilities. In addition, I have a wonderfully long list, and we're going to go flying through that. Oh, yeah, we got plenty of time to get through it. So, and the list is in the narrative. It is in week 2. It's at the very bottom as you scroll down the page when you go into Blackboard. Let me go into y'all's class very quickly and just show you the list I'm going to be looking at. Content. Remember, instructors, messages, and content is where you get everything. So when you go into week 2, which is where we're at, and I did have a student who sent me a course message going, are we having class on Monday, Labor Day? I was like, did you look at your syllabus where it says holiday? Don't ask me questions like that. And again, there's some clarity. I have a couple of schools with new facilitators, and they were like, you're not on the TV today on Friday. I was like, I sat there and told you guys, you have work to do on Fridays. I'm not going to be present because I'm going out to visit the schools. Okay? So here we go. So you go down, scroll down, and you'll see possible topic list. All right? And that is, guess what? I think I shut it down. Okay? It's got a lot of things in it. I'm just going to blow it up. Oh, there it is, nice and big. When I got lost. Have you ever been driving, gotten lost? Particularly with younger drivers. You know, your parents were always driving, right? And I grew up in a small town. It was easy to know where to go. But my mother let me drive to San Angelo, Texas on my own. And I was like, where do I turn? Because I was always sitting in the back seat. Or, you know, not reading a book in the front seat. You know, one of those things. So when I got lost, it happens. My favorite meal, you could write about that. Kind of asked you that on the introductory discussion board. What would the last meal you would eat? Isn't that what I asked? Something like that? Yeah. If I could go back in time, don't talk about going back 300 years in the past, okay? And if you could go back in time, what could you change in your life? I saw the weirdest thing. I'm just going to tell you. I'm sitting at home yesterday, and I get a text message from one of my grandsons, and it's a picture of a cat and another picture of a salamander. If the cat were eating the salamander, that might have, or the salamander was eating the cat. I was a little confused about why he sent me a picture of a cat. Salamander I can see, because that's, a reptile. You got this guy, you have a grin on your face right now, don't you? Little boys are interested in it. I've got the oldest grandson, going to be 13 next month, wants a snake. I want a python or a boa constrictor. You're a crazy little boy. I call little, he's as big as me, so. An animal I would be, if you could be an animal, what would it be? I wouldn't mind being a cat, because they spend a lot of time sleeping, don't they? Okay. Something I wish I had, I don't know if I could only see one color would be a good topic, all right? I only want to be able to see blue, I want to see them all, so. Is anybody colorblind? No? Okay. If I could change one thing about me, I'd be taller. Oops. Here, let me close out of that, because that green pops up. Place I'd like to live. There's a possibility. And a lot of students like to write about this. I would love to live in Colorado. I would love to live in Hawaii. Why? What are your reasons? Give me the narrative. How can you afford to live in Hawaii, to be honest? It's expensive. Think LA's expensive? Hawaii's more expensive. My secret place? You have a secret place? Oh, I know it, New Deal. It's under the bridge where the goat man is, right? That's your secret place? Something nobody knows about me? I once had the opportunity to dance with Lawrence Welk. You don't even know who Lawrence Welk is, do you? See, I'm that old. It's embarrassing, okay? If I could be I'd like to invent this. I wish I had invented something like, I don't know, Velcro. The game of Uno. The game of Uno was invented by two ladies from Brownfield sisters, and they sold that to Milton Bradley for a buku bunch of money. If I could be somebody else for a day, who would I want to be? Why? Why would you want to be that person, okay? Most interesting animal encounter. I'm going to tell you. Have you ever run into a wild turkey? And I'm not talking about the alcohol. I'm talking about a wild turkey. They're big. A few years ago, during one of our many previous droughts, we had a wild turkey move into town, into our neighborhood, because there's a lot of trees and water. And the turkey was about this tall. They're not little. Wild turkeys are not little. And so I'm walking my dogs, and it's coming up on Thanksgiving. Somebody put out wild turkey crossing sign in their yard, and they fly. They can land on roofs. It's kind of interesting. So I'm walking with my big black lab, and I'm walking with my little Sweeney. And when you walk dogs, what happens? Dogs poop. That's what walking does for dogs. And so I pick it up because I don't leave gifts in my neighbor's yards. So I'm carrying around a plastic, grocery bag with poop in it. And we're walking down the street, and turkeys are mean. Go to YouTube and type in angry turkeys and watch what turkeys do. I actually have a couple of videos in there because of this turkey. We're walking down, and we see the turkey coming, and I think, okay, we're going to move over to the other side, because it's just walking down the sidewalk like a human would be. So we move over to the other side. The turkey follows us and tries to land on my black lab's back. Now, that black lab's 90 pounds. He's pretty good size. He's running like crazy. My chihuahua's run under a car to get away from it, and I'm swinging the bag of poop at the turkey. You can imagine the bag exploded. And did it get the turkey? No, it got me, so... That's my interesting animal encounter. Have you ever had anything like that happen? Maybe not get covered in poop, but, what I'm saying. So there's a narrative. The longer you live, the more narratives you have, I guess, that you can deal with, okay? You won't believe I saw this, okay? All right. I guess that's what Caden was doing for me, showing me the picture of the cat and the salamander. Two pictures, one of a cat, one of a salamander. My hero. Now, this is a possible paper. You can write about somebody that you know. It can be a family member, someone from your church, someone that you experienced. One of my students I have previously was wearing a hoodie that was done in memory of a friend who had committed suicide. You know, you can do that. You can write about that individual. But be sure if you're going to write about your hero, why are they heroic to you? Give their names. Don't avoid their names. My brother's a really good guy. He does blah, blah. You know, you tell me everything about your brother but his name. So be careful to do that. But I used to make, they can ask Ms. Hockenberry at Newdale. That was their first paper was, who's your personal hero? I used to have them write that one. My favorite weather story, hey, all of us were here last February when we got stuck at home for a week, right? Remote learning, thank heavens we all had it kicked in. I was still teaching on Zoom to my schools. That was fun. Not that the kids were showing up. It's amazing how many kids didn't have internet. Well, Post didn't have internet for how long? You guys were without internet off and on for, it was kind of crazy over there. It took them a long time to get the internet back up because of the weather doing damage to, I guess, cables and stuff. But 6-7 years ago at Christmas, we got 20 inches. Or close, well, we got about 15 inches and it shut us down over Christmas. It's kind of crazy. My favorite superpower, I asked that on the introductory discussion board, didn't I? If I were invisible, oh, you get in a lot of trouble. If I were president, I don't want to be president. You want to shorten your life to be president. It's just the physical toll, the stress, not about being assassinated, just the stress of the job. If I could have any pet, well, my almost 13-year-old grandson wants that snake. Yuck. If I had $1 million, kids like to write about this. What would you do with $1 million? If I had $1 million, here's your 5-paragraph essay. I would pay off my student debt, buy my parents a house, and get a brand new car. There's your, see how, this is what the narrative would be. How did you get the $1 million? You just woke up with it one day? A TV show I would make up. A job I hate to do. Depends on where you work. The jobs you hate to do. Cleaning the bathrooms wherever you work, that's always gross, isn't it? If you work in retail, whether it's at a fast food restaurant, it's terrible. People are pigs, aren't they? The most beautiful thing in the world. Somebody always wants to, okay, my hero sometimes turns out to be the loved one of the individual writing it. I got one about somebody's boyfriend last year, and all I heard was, oh, he's always there for me. He takes care of me. He's always there for me. If you're going to write about an individual, don't just tell me what they do for you. Don't tell me that your mother's always there for you. Show me that she's there for you. Show me that she helps you out when you have problems. Give me examples of events, and now it becomes more of a narrative, doesn't it? If you just say they do stuff, it's not the same. My parents were right. Wouldn't that be the same thing as a hard lesson learned? Were your parents right about some things? That person you thought was your best buddy necessarily wasn't. My favorite toy ever, that was on I must have created my list for the discussion board from this. If I had my own planet, that's interesting. Oh, my greatest accomplishment. My greatest accomplishment was scoring 29 points in a JV girls basketball game. Lots of years ago. Okay? I don't think that's my greatest accomplishment, but, when you're in high school, it's a pretty big deal. Olson leads win is what it said in the paper. Published weekly. Olson leads win. A maiden name. Yeah, what can we say? The other team wasn't very good. My lucky charm, do you have a lucky charm? Is there something you do? Are you superstitious? A lot of athletes are superstitious. You got to wear those same socks. You got to put them on the same foot, goes on each time. You've got to touch this. You got to hand bump and all that stuff, right? If I could make school rules, what would you change? Most of the time it involves dress code and hair length. The smaller the school, the shorter the hair, right? Got any long-haired guys in Crosbyton? Nope, because long-haired equals long-haired hippie freaks. That's from the 70s. Long-haired boys, they get into trouble. Like long-haired girls don't get into trouble, okay? How embarrassing. My favorite thing to do is to see a woman and say, oh, when is your baby due? And they're not pregnant. So I've stopped asking that now. It took me about 30 years to figure that out, not to ever ask that question, but I stopped. My favorite gadget, please don't write about your cell phones, okay? I know it's everybody's favorite thing because it's like glued to your hand. It goes along this, right, doesn't it? Or have you ever, okay, so here's the funny thing. Have you ever done this? Where's my phone? Where's my phone? I don't know where my phone is. And it's in your hand. Maybe that's just for somebody over 60, right? Okay, but your favorite gadget. I like my iPad more than my phone. Picture's bigger, I can see it more easily. My earliest memory. I can remember when I'm maybe 2 years old. I've got an image of myself sitting on my aunt's back porch eating something. That's okay. Kind of under my bed. Oh my gosh. What's under your bed? When I was little, everything. As adult, I'm storing stuff under my beds now. The hardest thing I ever had to do. Now here's one. If I could live in another century, what century would it be? Okay. This made me laugh. Funny stories. Lots of things make me laugh. A secret place, that's on there twice. If I could invent a holiday, don't write about that. My secret talent. I used to make, when I was teaching in high school, I used to make, I said to my kids, do you have any kind of secret talent you want to show me? And there was a guy who could suck in his, you could count his ribs. It wasn't like he had a six-pack. It was really strange. But, secret talents, like touch their nose with their tongue or, Okay, maybe not. The year 2050. All right, this is kind of sad. In 2050, I'll be 96. That's 29 years from now. Well, what will you be doing in 2050? You're sitting there going, okay, I'm just old in 2050, so I will be, so just add 30 to your age. Under 50, right? What would you be doing? And it's kind of an interesting thought to project. We don't tend to project ourselves that far into the future. We can think, okay, in 5 years, I'll be out of college, I'll have a job, I'll be buying a house, I'll get married. We can do that. But when you hit that big 50 number, it's a little bit different, isn't it? Did I ever think I'd be teaching? No, not when I was your age. Let's see. The greatest invention. Again, don't write about your cell phone, okay? 5 things I can't live without. Or if you want to make it 3 things, you could do that. That would lend itself to for a 5-paragraph essay. 5 things I would give up. You got to be careful with 5 because you don't want to have these little short, tiny paragraphs in the middle of something. When I was a little kid, I find
Your
it
conference
funny
is scheduled to end in 2 minutes.
Writes, when I was a little kid. Because, age-wise, you're little kids to me. But little kids, when you were a little kid, what do you remember? Little kids are special, though. Something that disappeared. The best news I ever received. Most memorable trip. That's a good one. Where have you gone that was particularly interesting? And remember, please, don't talk about, if your memorable trip is to Switzerland, write about Switzerland. Don't write about getting on the dadgum plane, driving your car to Dallas to catch the plane, or getting in the car and driving, being dropped off at the hotel. Is that memorable? Not for your reader. First day at college, well, not so much for them, but you guys, your first day, were you a little intimidated when you walked in and you weren't sure what to do? Or I will say, last week, I walked down and it's like, I was going down to pick up something in a room where we can print and they don't charge us for the printing. And there's all these kids standing in the hallway and it's like 12:57 and their classes start at 1. I'm like, have you tried, are the doors locked? We don't know. Open the door and go in. You don't have to wait. No, the teacher's not going to open the door and tell you to come in. The teacher's probably going to walk in 5 minutes after you get that door open. Okay? It's one of those. Me, when I went back to get certified, the very first thing I did was spill a drink in the UC or sub at Tech. They change the name every 5-6 years, so I'm not sure what it is. Okay? let's see.
Your conference is
The
now
moment of
over.
success, a
Goodbye.
journey through hell. I hope you haven't been through it, but it's possible you have. The biggest misunderstanding, difficult decision, the trip of my dreams. That's a lot like the one earlier. The day I decided to change my life. I'll have one or two students. One student may write on this, and it might be about their decision to stop using drugs, or to stop drinking alcohol, or to decide to be serious about school. Somebody, someone will write that. My dad's influence on me. Learning to fit in. Isn't that what most high school kids want to do, is fit in? Isn't it really, that's what they make so many movies about, right? Fitting in. Oops, did we lose them? Yep, this time. Okay, there's a few more left on there. Have a great time. We didn't get through all surviving a tornado, all right? So I'll see you Thursday. Hey, at least I'm remembering it's Tuesday, and did say see you Wednesday. And we will go over, you have quizzes over chapters 3 and 4 on Friday. They open up at 8 o'clock in the morning. They close at midnight. Again, the students who forgot to take it because they thought it was going to be open on Saturday for some reason, even though it says Friday. Okay? So, but you do have access at the bottom of the unit to find that, okay? And hopefully I won't have to do so much talking on Thursday.
Have a good day.
You guys too. Enjoy yourselves. Bye. I'm going to go back to week 1. All right, let's get you put up. got it.